Sticking with Kenobi, though, we've got the writing credits for the first 5 episodes of the series. This is kind of interesting if you're like a film industry nerd, because on the one hand, it's like, who wrote the episode? That's interesting, I think, to most people who follow Star Wars and this sort of thing. But there's a lot going on with these credits that have been revealed by the Writers Guild of America West. So episode 1 will have a teleplay by Joby Harold and Hossein Amani and Stuart Beadle, with story by Stuart. Is it Stuart Beadle or Stuart Beatty? Beatty. Sorry, my eyes aren't working. Beatty, with a story by Stuart Beatty and Hossein Amani. Episode 2, teleplay by Joby Harold, story by Stuart Beatty and Hossein Amani. Episode 3, written by Joby Harold and Hannah Friedman and Hossein Amini and Stuart Beatty. Episode 4, written by Joby Harold and Hannah Friedman, and episode 5, written by Joby Harold and Andrew Stanton. Now, what's interesting about this is Hossein Amini was the dude who was originally hired to write the Obi-Wan Kenobi movie that this project began as.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So, presumably, in those first 3 episodes will bear some sort of resemblance to what was planned for that movie, because the way credits work in Hollywood like this is whoever the first person was to start writing something gets a credit. It's why it's why The Rise of Skywalker has story by Colin Trevorrow and Derek Connolly on it, because they started writing it. So Stuart Beatty and Hossein Amani are obviously those were the 2 guys that were originally working on this show before Joby Harold came in and took over and brought in his own writers like Hannah Friedman and Andrew Stanton, apparently. So it's just an interesting little wrinkle in the production here that we're seeing some vestiges of what this story began as. And who knows? It'll be interesting to hear from Hossein and Stuart and some of these other people after the show comes out. Maybe they'll be able to shed some light on how much of what they did wound up in the actual series. How much of a rewrite did Joby Harold and co actually do? I assume it's a lot. I think, some of these credits I suspect are kind of courtesy credits that they, because they were the first people to write on the project, they're still getting the credit. But, I suspect, much in the same way that Rise of Skywalker does bear some resemblance to Duel of the Fates, I suspect that the Obi-Wan Kenobi series will bear some resemblance to the Obi-Wan Kenobi movie, probably in the fact that it starts with Obi-Wan Kenobi overlooking Luke Skywalker on Tatooine, things like that were just always going to be part of the story, no matter who was writing it.
And George Lucas is already getting a credit, so,
Yeah, well, yeah. No,
which is more than he got for The Force Awakens, because he was in the based on section rather than the written by section.
Yeah, with George, though, he gets the based on credit for everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, based on Star Wars created by George Lucas.
Yeah.
The only thing that they took the based on credit out for recently was Clone Wars, where it just said created by George Lucas at the end.
Yeah, that makes sense.
With season 7, yeah.
Yeah.
So there it is. I don't know. I don't think there's much we can read into this story about the writers.
It's just kind of here is Andrew Stanton, who I'm familiar with. I mean, and a lot of people are familiar with him. He's done a lot for Pixar, written a lot of Pixar movies, including Finding Nemo, WALL-E, Toy Story 2, and a bunch of others. Maybe Monsters Inc. Yeah. So
he wrote the Star Wars jokes in Toy Story 2. I love that.
Yeah. I think
Buzz, I am your father.
Okay. Speaking of which, Lightyear coming up, which it feels like a Star Wars movie in a lot of ways. It's based on characters by
right.
in that one.
He also wrote John Carter.
That's interesting. I'm gonna say somebody maybe to keep an eye on from this as well going forward with Star Wars and Lucasfilm is Hannah Friedman. I'm just looking at her IMDb page. And for stuff that she has coming out in 2022, there's 2 episodes of Obi-Wan Kenobi, 2 episodes of Willow as well.
Oh,
So she seems to be somebody
interesting.
who's in at Lucasfilm these days. So somebody keep an eye on. Maybe we'll see more from her as well.
You will watch your career with great interest.
They, yeah, exactly.